Sometimes in life, you need to test yourself. You need to stack yourself up against something insurmountable. And that's why I went and played Sailor Moon: Another Story on the Super Nintendo. Sailor Moon is a little franchise you may have heard of, and it's just reeking of manly testosterone. I can just feel my beard growing by talking about it. It's so freaking manly. I'm actually chugging a few beers while writing this script because it's just that masculine. After experiencing it, I actually became the alpha male. Step aside, Andrew Tate. In all seriousness though, this was a Japanese exclusive game that never came out in the West, probably because the anime it was based on technically didn't come out in the West either. Well, it did, but technically it didn't. For the uninitiated, Sailor Moon came out in the 1990s and was heavily butchered, censored, and Americanized in the West to the point of stripping it of a lot of the subplots and had entire episodes, storylines, and such completely cut.
And neither of you's got a boyfriend, so you're stuck with us cats.
This meant that localizing the game would have been insanely difficult, as they'd have to make tons of changes to get the game in a state where it could even be understood by Western audiences. After all, this wasn't the days of the internet having high-speed connections on speed dial, so watching Japanese dubs with subtitles was still a pipe dream that wouldn't come along for another 10 years or so. So most of the West actually believed that her name was Serena. If you actually said the name Usagi Tsukino, most people in the West would have scratched their heads thinking you must have just completely broken out of the ward. I understand for a lot of people I'm sort of ripping the veil down and revealing a fond childhood memory you actually had was all a lie, and to all three of you, I'm sorry. But if you didn't know this by now, almost 25 years later, well, I can't help you then. The good news is, apparently the anime has been re-released and redubbed to not completely suck now, so balance was somewhat restored there. This game was translated by a team who hosted it at romhacking.net, and the patch includes a number of other small fixes as well. They focus on translating the game while not butchering it like the English dub did to the anime, so shout out to them. A link to their patches in the description below, so check them out if you want to play this game. Now, I have a confession before we go any further. I know this may come off as somewhat of a surprise to people, but I'm not the target audience of this franchise. I know it's a shocking revelation to many of you that I, a 30-plus-year-old man, am not the target audience of Sailor Moon, but it's true. I saw a few episodes of the horrid English dub on TV back when I was like 7 or so.
Oh, it just so happens I took a change of clothes this morning. My uniform's in the bag.
And I'm a purple cockatoo.
So naturally I have almost no clue what it was about. So I decided to go and do this video completely blind and only do a tiny bit of research on the very basics, to see if this game was approachable to people who were not familiar with the series. This game takes place somewhere between season 3 and 4 of the anime as far as I can tell. And what caught my attention is that's the only turn-based JRPG based on the franchise that I could find. So against my better judgment, I thought what better way to introduce myself to this franchise than to just jump into a game that was never actually localized, that takes place in the middle of this series, and likely assumes you have prior knowledge of it, of which I have none. Aren't my videos smart and intelligent? You really should subscribe, because I am super big smart and make very smart big videos. So like I said, this game is a turn-based RPG, and the only one in the franchise, and given that I'm a sucker for JRPGs, I decided why not give it a shot. The game was released in 1995, exclusively in Japan, and was developed by a team called Angel. That basically ends my entire knowledge of Sailor Moon beyond the fact that its creator apparently married the creator of Yu Yu Hakusho, which is definitely only half as manly as this. I only get half as pumped watching that knife edge fight with Yusuke and Chu. Two guys just punching each other, one of them gets pushed back into a knife. Oh, sorry, I got distracted there. I guess we should get back to Sailor Moon, huh? Okay, fine if we have to. Right away, I actually have to point out how impressive this game is from a graphic and technical standpoint. The graphics are colorful and damn detailed for the Super Nintendo. Many of the character portraits look super high quality, like they're ripped right from the anime. The environments are detailed and again, super colorful. The menus are stylized well, so there isn't much to complain about in terms of how the game looks. Hell, there's even voices in it. Granted, they're a bit crushed to absolute donkey manure due to the Super Nintendo's abysmal cartridge size limitation, but the fact they're even there is pretty cool. In terms of looks, the game is super impressive for the time period and the hardware. So long as you can look past its very girly themes, just think about football or something, I don't know. Still, I'm actually genuinely amazed this game looks as nice as it does. It really feels like a lot of effort was put in to make this look good. Part of how they even accomplish this though is a little unique trick that a lot of developers on the old Super Nintendo did from time to time, and it was to reduce what you see on screen by putting borders around the game. You may have even noticed that Chrono Trigger did it from time to time during battle sequences. Sailor Moon, Another Story, kind of accomplished this in a more elegant way by picking a colored border that gives the entire game sort of this comic book feeling. Wait, did I just suggest that a Sailor Moon game did something better than Chrono Trigger? Okay, I think the channel just got cancelled. Okay, in all seriousness, this was a common trick used back in the day to save on resources, and I have to always give credit where it's due. This game definitely used it pretty well. Now onto the actual battles. They're, not too special. A lot of it looks like your standard Final Fantasy clone for the most part, with the goofy large enemy sprites and your party using standard overworld sprites. And the actual leveling and combat system is pretty straightforward for its core elements. We all know how a turn-based RPG works, so I'm not going to explain that part unless it's like your first time ever seeing a video game or something. Instead, I'm going to explain the unique aspects that stand out. Instead of a traditional magic system using MP, you have this thing called EP, which I'm assuming stands for energy points and not something stupid, but for all I know they could stand for enigmatic penis, so who knows. Either way, you only get 12 of them. Yes, 12, as represented by these dots. Each special move takes up a certain amount of points, and if you run out, you need to use items to replenish them, mid-battle. Why mid-battle? Because they replenish automatically after a battle's over, which is nice of the game, but it also makes battles semi-clunky because if you have a longer fight, you can get off maybe 2 or 3 special moves before needing to exhaust a few turns recharging everyone's powers. Did I mention they were charged with crap like lipstick and makeup? Yeah, they were charged with crap like lipstick and makeup. I really wish that these replenish slowly while defending or something like Octopath Traveler, so you could just have one character on cooldown when you get ready to fight with others. I mean, I guess you can kind of do that by having one character recharging their points while the others fight, but just more to keep track of. Or, just have a traditional MP system. This means spending your yen at shops to stock up on items that you're going to need, which, fortunately, this game is pretty generous with money, so it's not like Final Fantasy XIII situation where you'll be starved for cash a good majority of the game. No, in actuality, you'll probably end up being the richest person in Tokyo by the end of the game. You don't have to be frugal with your cash, as you can replenish it relatively easily, which I'm thankful for. If only beating up a few monsters could net me enough cash to pay my rent in real life. Oh, but if you thought this was the only comparison to Final Fantasy XIII I was going to make about this game, just wait. As for the actual moves you can do, you got single attack moves that attack a single enemy with increased strength, multi-enemy attacks that hit multiple enemies for less damage each, but then you have not one, but 2 types of special moves. The first is some kind of all-out team attack that uses every girl in your team, which honestly is annoying to pull off as it usually drains most of your EP, requiring you to put everyone on recharge, unless you intend to have a few dish-out melee attacks from all the others that are charging EP, which I might add is usually a bad idea because melee attacks are insanely inconsistent in this game, where enemies just seem to absorb them most of the time, but thankfully not all the time. And to be perfectly honest, I never actually found a way to actually use this attack, so I don't even know how it really works. The next one is a little weirder as are these things called techniques, which you actually have to discover on your own by pairing characters in the menu to see if you can unlock them. It's literally just trial and error if you can guess the right combinations. As far as I know, there is no hints in game as how to unlock any of them. Maybe there's some kind of info in the instruction manual back in the day? Who knows? I sure don't. When a system requires literally random guessing, it makes me wonder why bother having it in the first place. Not to mention, for a large portion of the game, you don't even have the party members needed to pull off most of these moves. Which, again, reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy XIII. Another gripe I have is that I'm not entirely sure if the characters' attacks have elements attached to them, or if the elements even matter. There's no real information in-game on how to tell if they do, then the game probably just keeps this information to itself if they do. Even stat draining attacks can be confusing because they look like you're doing damage, but you're actually lowering their stats. I spent 30 minutes doing this on a single boss, I am not even kidding. Don't worry though, we're gonna get to that, just you wait. This game has a few other flaws combat-wise, but overall, despite these flaws, I have to admit, the battles are kind of addicting, and once you get past its flaws, it's actually a pretty fun little turn-based RPG. I found myself taking in the combat and having a good time with it most of the time. Music-wise, it's alright too, though I'm not sure if any of this music resembles anything from the series. You'll have to tell me in the comments. Oh, and one thing that was worth noting that I didn't know about until well into making this video, is apparently a superior fan patch version of the game fixes some of the issues that I talk about in this video. Not all of them, but a handful of them. So, worth mentioning. I actually reached out to fantasyanime.com about this game, but they didn't get back to me in time for this video. Still though, check out their site, they were actually very helpful in making this video. I referenced their page on this game many times. I'll leave a link to it in the description. This is all the easy stuff to talk about because now we have to get to the hard part of this video for me. I prefaced this at the start of the video, but I do think I need to preface this once again. I am not the target audience for this franchise, nor am I familiar with the source material, so this segment of the video is going to be based entirely on what I can ascertain from playing the game and drawing my own conclusions. I apologize in advance if this series is a childhood favorite of yours and I'm butchering the story worse than the English dub did. But I kind of want to go into this with the perspective of not being familiar with the source material to see how well it holds up to somebody who's unfamiliar. Our story begins with Usagi, aka Sailor Moon, aka this blonde girl, and the game starts Ocarina of Time style where you're just taking a nap, which you can just choose to not get up from. Which I always found to be a missed opportunity in games when they give you this option, and all that happens is if you just keep asking you to get up if you want to. I'd love some kind of troll option where you just refuse to get up and the game just sends you to the final boss, or like the credits just roll then and there.
Well, the truth comes out. I've never been autistic. I work 40 hours a week to support my parents. This has all been a trick. You have been trolled.
Usagi is told to get up by her cat Luna, who then tells her something odd about the city seems to be going on, and that she should go and investigate. And thus we begin Chapter 1. Okay, so once again, the graphics are very detailed and very pretty for a Super Nintendo game, so I'm kind of blown away by the quality of the character models, the portraits, everything. This game really gets a big ups for that. That said though, from the start of the game, we run into the very first problem. Where the hell do I go? This game lacks any and all map system, which is super annoying in larger areas like the city, because you will wander around aimlessly until you figure out, oh, I can find this random NPC standing out here who tells me to go east or west on a specific street and I can reach new locations. Okay, I can cut it a little slack in that yes, people had more free time back then, and that talking to every NPC you saw was commonplace in RPGs back in the day. But I mean, come on, even Earthbound had a map system, and that was released a year earlier than this. FantasyAnime.com actually had some really nice detailed maps that made the game a lot easier. Legit, someone should ROM hack them into the actual game though. Eventually though, I figured out where I had to go by getting a hint from a random NPC and heading into a shop where you fight your first boss. Usagi beats the first monster and finds it weird that monsters are attacking, and here we switch to Mamoru, who I'm presuming is Usagi's boyfriend or something? Anyway, he has a dream about an evil comet from an evil star that is supposed to reset the timeline. Oh great, just what I needed, a game that I'm not familiar with the source material, and time travel. That won't make things confusing at all. He's told this by someone named Kunzite, and that he's going to have to choose which future he wants. Really, it's already way over my head, but this is what you clicked on this video for, me trying to decipher what is even happening in this game. In case you were hoping my analysis of the story gets better, don't, because I can say with all honesty, I had little idea what was even going on for the majority of this game. I guess I was not wrong in assuming that it requires a lot of knowledge of the series to even understand what's happening here. Take a game like Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise. It's designed in such a way that people who have never seen the series can understand what's happening as it leads you through the plot and gives you information about stuff that happens in the series so you can understand what's going on. This game, however, just drops you in like, good luck, dumbass. So Usagi goes to discuss the situation with her friends, the other sailor soldiers, and sort of devolves into this lovey-dovey crap about girls gushing over boyfriends and whatnot, and why am I playing this? Okay, let's move along to the important part, okay? The group goes to the train station to see Ami, or Sailor Mercury's supposed boyfriend, and everyone runs out of the train saying there's a monster that has attacked the train, and a boy is trapped inside. Naturally, this looks like a job for the Magical Girl Squad. All of them transform, and you get more of proper introduction to the battle system with a full party. Something worth pointing out is that this is the only game I can think of that has a 5-party member system. Just don't get used to it for reasons that we'll get into later. You defeat the monster and head back to your friend's place where Sailor Mercury says that she had a vision where the future and the past got replaced with a new version of events. So this is sort of where you figure out the bad guy's motivation. They want to swap another timeline with the current timeline or something like that. Ray of the group decides it'd be a good idea to do some kind of ritual to see more about finding out what's going on. Seriously, is she related to Ray from Fatal Frame? Doing spooky rituals always seems to be a bad idea in Japanese games after all.
Heard this house was haunted. Too bad it's not.
The ritual tells them a person named Sin, which I presume is the new enemy. Really? Sin? Super original there. Anyway, we're not given much more until later on. Phone call comes in where you find out Hotaru, another one of the group, has fallen ill and you have to rush over to the hospital and see them. After visiting her in the hospital, Sailor Moon questions if Hotaru will turn back into Mistress 9. Who is that? I don't know. Again, I'm not familiar with the anime or the manga this is based upon, so your guess is as good as mine. If you want to give me context for anything in this game, feel free to tell me how dumb I am in the comments, please. Another monster attacks, and after defeating it, we're given a cutscene about our villains. These guys are called the Opposito Senshi. So basically, they're literally the opposite of the Sailor Soldiers, like, quite literally. Also, I like to point out this game goes really all in for exposition and story. There are pretty long stretches of story, which is good for someone like me who enjoys story, but not when so much of the story requires prior knowledge. Still, it doesn't even enter Corpse Party Blood Drive territory at least, where the story segments are so long that you're just mashing the A button to get them over with. The Apsudo are working for a woman named Lord Apsu, and for changing the past, Lord Apsu gives them powers and tasks them with defeating the Sailor Soldiers. I swear, the things that I am saying in this video out loud sound astronomically ridiculous. The Apsudo start corrupting your minds with dreams of a possible future, and you have to get everyone to come to their senses and fight. After confronting them, they reveal they're after the MacGuffin, the Silver Crystal, which has tremendous power. You fight, and the group regroups at Mamoru's apartment, where they're greeted by 4 spirits explain they have to acquire a series of crystals so they can defeat the Apsudo and Lord Apsu. You then are given your first mission to go get the 4 stones. 1 in Canada, 1 in Nepal, 1 in Switzerland, and 1 in Turkey. So basically this becomes Sailor Moon World Tour because the groups will have to go into Chapter 2 and oh god, no! Oh god, I hated Chapter 2 so much when playing this. It gives me nightmares just thinking about it. Chapter 2 is split into several sub-chapters where you get control of various characters for each one. And this is where some of the game's gameplay flaws really start to come out. There isn't too much to say about the story of each of these sub-chapters, it's just a subplot where you just go and get the 4 crystals. But holy crap, each one of these chapters shares the same problems, and let's count the ways. Problem number 1. Enemy encounter rate is too damn high. You can't walk more than a few steps sometimes without being thrown into yet another battle. I thought the encounter rate in Persona 1 was bad, but this might actually top it. It is absurd how many battles you'll find yourself in, and this leads me directly into problem number 2. Developers of this game did not even remotely consider how to make encounters balanced. The moment you get a control of a new character, they're usually insanely underleveled for the situation you find yourself in. And so your first few battles will result in getting stomped and killed until you're lucky enough to get a few victories in to level up. The difference in damage and damage reduction per level is insane, and it's like this in every new subchapter. You spend the first 20 to 40 minutes just trying to level up, until you find accessories that will somehow power you up and figure out the right combination. But this game gives you no clue toward that. I just sort of figured it out randomly. Problem number 3, you are stuck with a single party member for almost all of these subchapters. You spend literally almost half of the game not having a full party. And I don't even think you get a complete full party to the second half to chapter 3. And there's only 5 chapters in this game. Remember how I said earlier that I'd be bringing up Final Fantasy XIII again? Yeah, this is where I'll be doing that once more. It's so weird that both these games chose to just not give you access to your full party until the game is more than half over. Anyway, we take control of Sailor Mercury and get our first crystal, and oh god, no! Okay, if you are a fan of this game, or played it before, then you already know. If you are not, then let me preface this part of the video by saying the moment I experienced this fight, I knew I had to do a video on this game. This fight makes me wonder if the developers were trying to make a video game, or some kind of vampire that steals your free time. Nebu's fight is the most perplexing design decision ever. Her first form isn't too bad, just attack her a few times and she goes down. But then her second phase. Her defense is so high that you literally can only hit her for 2 damage or so, even after leveling up far more than the guides online recommend. I had to look up to see if I was doing something wrong, and no! This is how the fight is intended to go. You will sit here kicking her and using healing items to restore damage done to you for, I kid you not, close to 20 solid minutes. Possibly longer. I wish I was making this up, but the fight went on for so many turns that the boss actually ran out of EP to even use their own special attacks, and I still had to wail on them for several more minutes. You wanna see how long this is in sped up time? Watch. I legitimately cannot fathom why anyone would do this. This has to be one of the most poorly designed boss fights I have ever seen in a game. This literally will add close to an hour to your playtime just because of how freaking cheap it is. I can only imagine how much more brutal this was for people back in the day who lacked save states or emulators to speed this up. The ROM hack I mentioned earlier that I didn't play actually adds a fix to this game, what makes this fight much more bearable. That's how bad it is. What even was going on at the studio that day to where this actually shipped out like this? It's not even challenging, it's just boring and time consuming. 2 really bad combinations of things in a video game, might I add. Eventually, she goes down, and you get the stupid crystal and get to move on to the next section, where you get to control Sailor Mars, followed by Sailor Jupiter, and then finally Sailor Venus. All 4 girls get the crystals, and we go back to Japan for the next chapter. Chapter 2 is split up into these 4 sub-chapters, as you can see and I mentioned earlier, and thus takes up almost half of the game. For almost half of the game, you're stuck using a single party member fighting insanely tedious battles. It is mind-boggling how anyone thought this was a good idea. It's not like this game follows any specific story in the anime, so they could have written it in whatever way they want, thus wrote a story that gives you access to the full party. I don't even see a point in the combined techniques if you don't have access to them for the majority of the game. Like, what is the point of doing any of this? Dear Lord, we have to move on though. Chapter 3, you finally get a proper party assembled, but dear lord is this weird. You start the chapter by saving Saturn from being turned back into Mistress 9. It's a pretty easy fight with nothing to write home about, followed by her dad, also a fairly straightforward fight, but as always, you begin the entire chapter underleveled. Then finally you meet up with the other girls and actually have a decent sized party. But good luck enjoying this moment, as you'll need to spend some time leveling up to get everyone around level 13 or so to even stand a chance. And of course, you get to enjoy the freaking boss gauntlet fighting these girls called the DD girls. I'll leave the obvious jokes aside, but you have to fight these in rapid succession. It's tedious. Then you get to fight Queen Beryl 3 times. This entire chapter is just a railroaded boss run where you're drastically underpowered for the challenge. I realized at this point you can use this item in your inventory called the Holy Grail to turn into Super Move. Okay, I'll ignore the absurdity that the item you need is the Holy Grail and it's in your inventory from the start of the game. As far as I know, there was nothing that told you how to use this thing, maybe an instruction manual, which I don't have because I don't speak enough Japanese to read it, but I can't ignore how these boss fights get super repetitive. There is not much strategy involved, just spam your techniques. It barely matters which one, because again, I don't see any kind of elemental system in this game. Look, I don't think I'm really doing the story of this game justice because I'm really struggling to understand what's even going on. So I apologize once again if I'm butchering what's happening, but this game definitely was not designed around the idea of people who are uninitiated being able to pick it up and follow. For the sake of this game not being overanalyzed story-wise by a guy who knows little to nothing about the franchise, I'm just going to keep the story actually simple from here on out. It was at this point I started to realize that not only do I have no clue what's going on in this nonsensical plotline, but also that the battle system is insanely unbalanced where damage output is nearly random. That is that there is really no way to tell what characters will work best in which areas because again, there's no freaking elemental system. With so many party members as well, you'll find yourself scratching your head at what to do in what area until you get this item called the Red Pupil. This thing breaks whatever character has it equipped, and basically makes them do comical amounts of damage while other party members struggle to scratch enemies. Okay, after another absurdly broken and frustrating boss fight, seriously, screw this guy, you get access to the Venus airship. Yes, an airship. Did I mention that Sailor Moon takes place in 1992? Oh, but that's not relevant though, because at this part you go to the past to find an airship in the past, which is actually from the future transported to the past from the present or something. Seriously, why the hell am I playing this? So when you have the airship, the game starts to actually look a bit like a regular JRPG, where you have a little bit more free roaming around the world map, except no you don't. Because the game more or less pushes you towards singular locations, and don't be fooled, you're still on a rail. There is not much exploration going on here, so it defeats the purpose of even having a ship. I think this is when I started to see the biggest problem this game has. It doesn't really give you much freedom to do much for a large portion of the game. Even going back to previous areas is locked off until this point. The airship, which gives you the feeling of great RPGs like Secret of Mana or the obvious Chrono Trigger, is just a humongous freaking letdown. So after a very disappointing open world segment and a few boss fights, we finally make it to Chapter 5. And what is Chapter 5, you might ask? Boss fights. Boss fights! Oh god, so many boss fights. So many boss fights.
So many friends on the moon for me.
The absolute gauntlet that is Chapter 5 is insane. Like, I don't even know what they were thinking. This is just tedious boss fight after tedious boss fight. I think it was a good 45 minutes where I could even reach a save spot. Eventually, though, you win, and the game is finally over. Then you can start the game over to get the second ending. Yes, this game has 2 endings, but to be honest, I highly doubt anyone will want to go through the effort of getting the second one. There's also a collectible system in the game where you can find collectibles to sell to a shop, but outside of money, which you don't really need much of, there's not much benefit in wasting your time on it. The last thing is that there's a puzzle that you get pieces for by defeating certain enemies in the game, but it's not really interactable and all it is an image of all the characters, nothing really to write home about. But then again, I don't think you were expecting some kind of B campaign after seeing how much I've been talking about this game for most of the video. Now, can we get on to the final part of the video so I can be done with this? If it wasn't painfully obvious, this game is very rough. It's unbalanced, has no map system, and it's a slog to get through at times. With a story that's very complicated and requires extensive knowledge of the series, it's definitely not a pick up and play kind of game, so I definitely am not doing it justice. Still, despite its flaws, it does have a unique charm to it. Outside of its pretty graphics, no pun intended, there is a charming little game here. I wish some ROM hacks would be made to iron out its flaws, because despite all of its shortcomings, I actually did have some fun while playing this, and it did actually get me to go out of my way and buy the Blu-ray for the series, which I'm watching with my wife now after writing this video. And I will say the series is actually very good, it still holds up today. If you want to engage with this franchise, that's my recommendation. Watch the series, it's infinitely better, and don't let this video dissuade you. There are also other Sailor Moon games out there, which I'm not sure of their quality, maybe one day I'll do a video on those. I know there are many people who probably loved this game, and please understand my videos are not intended to tell you what you can and can't love. I love a lot of games that people think are objectively bad games, such as Mario is Missing. So please don't take my thoughts too personally. You're free to enjoy what you want to enjoy, and I would never want to take that away from people. It may not be an RPG classic, but it's definitely an interesting game, that's for sure. And I still had fun even though it was a chore to get through at times. At least it's not Eternal Sonata. If you made it this far, you're one of the real ones. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one, and leave your thoughts on this game below. I'm WizPlay, and that's enough of that.